My name is Fatima Haji, and I'm the project manager for Somali Week Festival 2019. We will get started because we don't have much time. Gosh, this light is quite bright. What the order of the evening is that we will hear from our visiting artist, Abdulqadir Ahmed Saeed, who will give us a short lecture on Somali filmmaking, which I'm sure will be so insightful. And then we will have 4 film showings and then a panel discussion. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Abdulqadir Ahmed Saeed, who is a Somali filmmaker. He's one of the pioneers of Somali filmmaking, and he resides in South Africa. He's made some beautiful films that are award-winning, 2 of which are Seashell and Tree of Life, Geed Kinolosha. So Abdulqadir, if you'd like to come up.
Well, there is a way of saying the person who does not know where he comes from, he will be victim not knowing where he will go, and someone else will lead him. But what I'm saying about that, Somali cinema, Somalia has 2 things. It started with a colonial event in 1880, when the camera came to Africa or something else like that. And Somalia had 2 colonizers. I'm not talking about the Djiboutian one, which is the 3rd colonizer, but it started in Somaliland. I have here the paper. What do you call it? In 1920 started in Somaliland, and 1922 started in Somalia. And 1920, in that time, the Italians have built Cinecittà, which is the great film studios at that time, and they were making film propaganda of fascism and all these things. And the first feature film that they made in that period, it was called The Soldier of Bronze, Soldato di Bronzo. And it deals with Somalis and everything. Then the other feature film, it was Dubat, which is the soldier unit that they participated in the War of Ethiopia and all these things. And in Somaliland, they had the British film, colonial film unit. And that had the legacy started, and mostly anthropologists came in, embedded with the, what they call it, the soldiers, and their duty and their responsibility was to explain the other. Who are these? The Somalis, to the British taxpayers. And they did a lot of anthropological films, how they shave the beard, how they make the pots. And you can find them at the British Library here. What do you call it? And the web page is called www.colonialfilms.org.uk. You find those schemata of films. They made more than 20 films of that. But coming back, in the modern Somalia, what do you call it, in 1960, when Somalia became independent, what happened is that Somalia, through the Minister of Information, they had a unit called Films. They didn't have television at that time, a film unit. And the first country who supported that, it was Germany. And the first crew and technician who studied, they were sent Somalis, they were sent to Germany, Berlin, and all these things. Unfortunately, both of them, today they died. One died in London. His name was Abd Ali Gedi. The other died in Mogadishu, Abdul Qadir Jum'ale, photography and cinematographer. And the beauty of Somalis is this. For them, script writing, directing, it was not their business. To hold the camera was the main subject matter. And that's funny that they carried on in the tradition that a cameraman is a filmmaker. Then Soviet Union, Italy, India, United States of America, they got scattered and been trained from all these sources. Then in 63, the first filmmaker, which is a history that every one of us has to be proud. By the way, let me, forgive me, I have to inform you that among our guests, there is the European representative of the Pan-African Federation of Filmmakers, Kid Shiri. Kid, are you there? Somalia played a role in the creation of the Pan-African Federation of Filmmakers. Was one of the founding members. It was Haj Aga Kombe, Haj Mohammed Aga Kombe, and other three filmmakers, one from South Africa, his name was, who was a refugee at that time, and the other one is Pauline Samano Vieira from Senegal. In a hotel room in Algiers, they created that organization called Pan-African Federation of Filmmakers, which in the 60s, 66, and all these things. Then Haj Aga Kombe made the first film. It's called a part of Egypt and Tunisia, that who started cinema before even England or France or anything else. You know that for you sounds funny, but Egypt filmmaking started before the Europeans started making films. Somalia was the first African country who started making films in the 60s. Sambene Osman, a part of Pauline Samano Vieira, who made a film in Paris, where the French, they call it what they call it, something between us and the River Seine. But Somalia made the first film. Then Sambene Osman came after went studying in Moscow, and that's another story. He made the first films. But we played that role in contributing to African cinema and creating that path of African cinema. The Somali Film Agency had a large number of filmmakers, so what they call not filmmakers, camera person, photographers. We followed the British colonial style of making documentaries, where we had newsreels in 35 millimeters and documentaries in every month. But we had a large number. Then the second feature film was made by a young Somali in, who studied media and all these things. And his name is Idris Hassan Dirie, and he lives here in London. He made the film Dan Harago, where Khadija Qalanjo is the actress in that film. That was the first film financed by the revolutionary government. This is the funny story that every 10 years Somali makes films. But in the middle, we used to make a lot of documentaries. We followed the British style. But coming back to then Saeed Salah in 1983, who is present also at this Somali week here as a poet, but he's also a dramaturg, he makes theater and all these things. He made the Somali Derwish, where we worked together, but I was involved in separate section, which is called location manager. And after that, when it came the need to study and to make and to move forward, it was quite difficult to become writing a script and doing that thing. To give you an example, we had scholarship in Moscow, in Czechoslovakia, in United States of America, but the Somali government only chooses, according to the Somali people, director of photography, not even editors. The German Democratic Republic at that time, they said, no, you must have editors. They sent 2 girls, they never came back. And we saying, what happened to these girls? Until now, I'm worried about them, where they ended up. No script writers, no nothing. How do I become a student in cinema? I loved cinema. My playground was cinema Hatramut. Those who know cinema Mogadishu and know that it was my playground. Up to the level that I reached the level not to pay even the ticket, why the people knew. Why I used to watch during the day in the projection. I asked them to be an assistant on helping them in preparing the reels, mounting them, and seeing in reverse with a mirror inside the booth of the projection. But always fascinated me, and when I was sent to Moscow to study political science, I knew in Moscow they had one of the best film schools. There are 2 film schools best in the world. One is the UCLA in the United States of America, and they teach you mechanical cinema. And the other one is Soviet Union, where they teach you poetic cinema. I was sent there. I took the train from where I was staying. I'm enrolled in that school, take the metro, going into that. We had the card of the party where nobody's asking you, everyone stands. We were guests of the Central Committee of Soviet Union. We go there, I enrolled myself at the film school, listening on. Finished that, came back to Mogadishu. Then I have been sent to study graphic design and history of art at the university in Ravenna. I said, okay, I'm in Italy. Where is the next film school? Cinecittà. In Italian, they call it, if someone being in Italy, they call it pendolare. You know pendolare, what that means? To go use the train, migrating to go to work and everything. From Ravenna, I was studying at the dams in Bologna. Dams coming here to Rome, capture the lesson, go back, coming back, go back. So I was always hysterically pregnant. Studying and cinema and all these things. But the important thing is that film is an industry. And any respectable industry means categorization of people, professionals that you can trust, and film costs money at that time. It's not that today we have digital and you can play, what do you call it, like as you like. Negative, it was the most expensive thing. Why? When you have a negative, 1 meter is $1, developing is $1, making the print, positive print is another $1, then color grading is another $1. So 1 meter goes to 1. And think about that when you start take 1, take 2, take 3, take 4. It's not an easy task. It was not an easy task. But we succeeded, alhamdulillah. We overcome. And now I'm glad to hear, and I follow. You see, I live in Cape Town, in my cubbyhole. But in my cubbyhole, there is something called computer and internet. I follow any Somali movement, artistic and expression. Who's this? What he has done that? Why he has done that? So I'm aware of it. And I'm proud of the young generation who take those giant lion steps. But I want to have to warn them, be careful not to make mistakes. It's easy, thinking that you have reached it. But remember, there is a Somali farmer's proverb who says, don't look where you fall, but look where you slipped, or you have slipped. And in Somalia, we are the most gifted people, and our Somali people they have the wealth of art, but in the same time, they got the deafness that you don't find in the rest of the world. So this combination, you see? Why, you see, there is also another way of saying, where we say, your strength is also your weakness. If I want to see your weakness, I don't have to look anything else. I have to look at your strength. And in there, I see the contradiction. And now we have the prime saying, Manig of Somalia. Okay. Welcome to the club. They push you in another area. That is from that my segasa. Okay, go to the other section. And if someone tells you you are wrong, oh come on, Hakasi. Do you understand? So we live in that contradictions. And there is nothing that the poets, artists, and literature of Somalia haven't said to the Somali people. But you ask yourself, what blinded them and deafened them to listen? One single sentence that the Somali artists have said about that. Nothing. But in the same time, they didn't spare effort in telling them, don't do this, don't do that, do this, this is your richness. This is Alhamdulillah. I said too much. I don't want to look like a pedantic old man. I would like to hear from your side. I came here to listen and learn from you, but I don't have nothing else to tell you and to teach you.
Thank you again, Abdulqadir. I'm sure you have a lot more to tell us and to teach us. We'll move on to the next part of the event. Thank you for joining us for Somali Week Festival's Film Night. We will have a panel discussion featuring some of the filmmakers and some of the actors and others who are involved in the film. I hope that you all got a chance to process some of the difficult things in that break. And we're always here and available. We do have a psychotherapist who's here as well, so if anybody wants to talk to her. The moderator for the panel discussion is Dr. Fatuma Abdi. She was the first Somali woman who's born in the UK who obtained her PhD in the UK. MashaAllah. She is a public health specialist and does research in communities both here and in Somaliland. She's the founder of the Somali Mental Health Network and East African Public Health Forum. Without further ado, I'll leave you in the capable hands of Dr. Fatuma.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It's really fantastic to be here today. I really enjoyed watching the films, and it's great that we can all sit in this space and share those films today. We're going to have a very interactive, I hope, and interesting panel discussion. So I will introduce each panelist, And they're all connected, most of them, to these films that we watched. And the hope is that we can have a good discussion around the themes and the issues that came up as part of the movies. The one thing I would say is that I think Fatima made a very, very good judgment call when she suggested that we take a 10-minute break. Some of the themes that we were watching were quite disturbing and quite upsetting. And Layla and Fatima, both of them, have been amazing tonight in helping make sure that everybody's feeling okay. So a round of applause to them, please. And thanks very much. Okay, so we shall start filling our seats on the discussion table. I will start with our filmmaker, Abdelkader Ahmed Saeed. If you'd like to come up, please. So Abdelkader has obviously given us a presentation already. He's an award-winning filmmaker. He's been making films for a very long time. He's now currently residing in Cape Town, South Africa, where he's a lecturer, an educator. He's a digital graphic designer and a photographer. And he's worked as the director of the International Relations Somali Film Agency from 85 to 90. And he was the director of production and programming for Somali TV. So his film Geedka Nolosha was highly acclaimed around the world, and today his film that we watched, Seashell, his short film, we'll be discussing that in detail as well. So thank you. The next person I'll add up is Ali Naji. So Ali's a Somali Dutch cinematographer who's directed his short film Fate that we watched today. He lived in Holland for over 10 years and then moved to London in 2017. And he regularly returns to the Horn of Africa, where he regularly films throughout the region. He's a producer as well of music, and he's made some albums while he was in Holland. He also works with Universal TV, where this role also means that he travels widely in the region, the diaspora. So welcome, Ali.
Thank you.
The next person we'll have up is Al Khair Birchall. Come on, Al Khair. So Al Khair is a British Somali film director and producer. She's collaborated with director Tyrone Samuels to do a debut film called Project Skyline. And her short documentary today, Birth, that we saw filmed in the Dadaab refugee camp in Kenya, was made in 2015. Thank you very much, Al Khair. Next up is Zach Salad. Welcome, Zach. Welcome. Zach is a British Somali filmmaker. He debuted his short film entitled The Audition at the downtown Los Angeles Film Festival in 2017. And he's not only a producer, he's also a leading actor. And he's currently directing a feature-length documentary to tackle the issue of tahrib and fighting the networks around that. So welcome to Zach. Thank you. Next up is Sumaya Ahmed Hussein. Welcome, Sumaya. I feel like saying, come on down. Sumaya began her career in high school when she began creating short plays with her then teacher. She collaborated with the director Nabil Noor to make her first film, Diga Maddago. She began her studies and crafts, took time out to go to a London film school. She's now back, and she was in the play that was shown during the festival called Home. I don't know if some of you went to see that. And she's 26 years old and from Sweden. So welcome, Sumaya. And last and certainly not least, we have Zakaria Auke. Come on up, Zakaria. Zakaria is the son of Ahmed Hassan Auke, the very famous BBC Somali journalist and TV presenter. The film that we watched was started 5 years ago and was released only this year for the very first time. Sadly, his father, Ahmed Hassan Auke, Allah Hariste, he passed away in November 2015, just before this film was finished. So Zakaria himself has his own youth show on a Somali TV channel, where he holds discussions about issues that affect young people, and together they seek solutions live on air. So our panelists. So perhaps we can start with Abdelkader at the end there. Abdelkader. Your film was, and I have to say, when I first saw it, I thought it was incredibly beautiful. Very beautiful. Almost the beauty of the Somali region, I didn't even realize just how beautiful it was. So it was that contrast of having that beautiful and yet very tragic film, where you were exploring the injustices of obviously illegal dumping, but also there was a political message that that was running beneath the whole movie. Can you talk to us a little bit about what that was?
That film, the idea came, famous flight from London to Rome. And there was a newspaper, I don't know if they still publish, called it The Telegraph. Yes. And you don't have anything to do at that time. They didn't have movies. You get busy reading in the newspaper, trying to fill your gap and worries. And I went through first page, second page, third page, fourth page. There was one paragraph where they say in Nigeria, an entire village was wiped out. Only 4 lines. And I said, entire village was wiped out, and it's the 4th page? It's stuck in my mind. Meantime, in Rome, I was trying to raise the fund to make the film in 1989. Mogadishu is in turmoil, and that is how the film came to be. It's an entire story for itself. I had to recruit the crew, Italian crew, and the director of photography said, it's safe to go to Mogadishu. I said, don't worry about this, okay. Which is a complete lie. And he said, tonight I'm going to invite you at dinner at home. So his mom, the first question she asks before serving the pasta, why you want to kill my son? I'm not killing your son. So the sound person, everyone, I put them on the plane, landed in Mogadishu, I remember. And at that time, the Somali Film Agency had a difficult financial situation where there was no hard currency and all these things. And I had to go through an institution called COE, which is Centro Orientamento Educativo, was based in Milano, which is the Ministry of Information of the Vatican. And I proposed the film. They cut out one thing, which is another story. But the question is this: I shot that film indirectly predicting and not being able to answer that every Somali today knows it. Can you tell me, everyone has his own answer? What happened? Hoyom Hadai. And nobody's able to answer. Even the mother was not able to answer. And everyone is the same. So indirectly means, I remember that the Italian ambassador and the German ambassador, they were on set in Gandershe, which is 30 kilometers from, not 30, 25 kilometers from Mogadishu. After Jazeera, you go to military camp and then you pass them, and there is Gandershe. And the Italian ambassador said to me in a dinner when he welcomed the Italian team, he said to me, why you're setting up our nationals? You know that this country is not safe. You know you brought it. I said, it's something that you and us will be grateful in the future. And he never trusted me. So every day he was on the set of Gandershe. And you can imagine what attracts them, that this kind of thing, that the ambassador is there, and you don't know why the ambassador is there.
Did that cause tension? Was that made the film set quite tense?
It's not the self-contained, it's to make sure that the people that he represents will not be slaughtered by those roaming savages, according to him. But nevertheless, the moment that they took the last flight from Mogadishu, the crew, I was stuck behind. But the film deals with that fundamental question that we are poisoned. A part of the ecology, I use ecology as a context, but the content is something else. But the form is ecology, but the content is something else. You can transpose to contradiction, internal contradiction, remembering the beauty, remember everything, and the word that we lost. And we don't know even the reason why we lost that word. And I'm glad that, you see, that today all the films that I watched tonight gave me the courage to say I was not alone. Why every Somali has that notion, what I call psychologically Somalitude. Not solitude, but Somalitude. And each one of us is touched by that Somalitude in a form or in another. That is the form. And I think that I answered your question. And I'm proud that this young generation or young filmmakers, they touch that subject matter.
Absolutely. I will jump over to Al Khair after that, because Abdul Qadir was talking very beautifully about his journey in terms of the experience and the Somali experience. You also did the same thing, but in a completely different context. Rather than the beauty of the Somali country, you were talking, you based your film in the Dadaab, the biggest refugee camp in the world. Talk a little bit about, if you don't mind, why you did this, what sort of themes you were looking for, and your experience of doing that as well.
Before I answer that question, I'm going to talk about the filmmaking side of it. This is my first ever film, and I wanted to show you my first ever film because for anyone who has a small idea, you can start from the tiniest idea in your head, and it can grow. That's my first film, and from that film, I've learnt what to do better, what not to do. It also gave me a platform to work with such amazing directors such as Samuel, Tyrone Samuels, who is an amazing black director. So I just wanted to tell you that if you have an idea, don't be scared of making a film. Okay, and I showed you my first film, yay! So just don't be scared, and you can see my other films on my website, but that's just to start off with. So if you have an idea, just go for it. In terms of the idea that I had, I was pregnant. It was 2014, and I was very lucky to have doctors, midwives, my husband, my family, and I just thought, what about the other women who are left behind in Somalia, in Somaliland, and in Dadaab? And I wanted to go to Dadaab and just find stories of women who don't have what I had. So that's the basic idea.
Thank you. We'll sort of, I found that film quite interesting because it's quite contradictory, I thought, because some of the women were saying we have now healthcare, and if we're sick we get helped, and there is an ambulance, and yet there's a complete contrast. The difficulties of childbirth, they touched on FGM, they touched on lack of family planning for some, and the impact of that on their health. So it was an interesting contrast between the same space, and one midwife was saying, the women are in severe nutritional deficiency, there are real problems with their health, and yet you didn't see that necessarily reflected in some of the comments from the women, which was interesting, the different perspectives that we got. So.
Yeah, also, culture and religion plays a big part of that. So that's the reason why there was so many.
Sure. Yeah. And they talked about fate, didn't they, and how some women would not want to have any medical intervention because of their idea of what religion's expecting of them.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. We'll move on to Ali Naji and Zach and the film Fate, which was a very interesting short film, and perhaps both of you can comment on this. And I know that after speaking to Ali, I understood from the movie that, for me, when I watched it, there was this very strong theme of loss, love and loss, be that loss of family, loss of country, loss of identity, and that the main protagonist, Samira, was actually daydreaming that she'd lost this person who had gone away back to his country, and while she was preparing for her wedding, she was dreaming of him walking into a cafe and they meet again. Can you talk a little bit about what made you explore those themes in your short film?
Thank you. I want to thank first Somali Week to give us the opportunity to showcase our films, and I'm honored to sit next to great filmmaker. You are, yes, we are all honored. So,
Yes, we agree.
a role model who I like his style of filmmaking. Less talking, less conversation, less dialogue, and still you watching. And I watched this film 10 times. So I'm still gonna watch. How you film and cinematography is amazing. Thank you for making this. And I'm also great honored to sit next to other filmmakers who I worked also, Zach and Sumaya was originally in this film. And one scene we didn't finish, the main actress, she went to America, so we canceled and restarted. And that time she was in holiday, we couldn't work together. So, and back to Faith, and it's drama, romance, fiction. I had this story and told to a friend of mine who is Polish, a script writer, and she did it in 3 days, the script. And we edited it and then started shooting. And I want to also mention that I worked with amazing people, the cast and crew, Samira, who's our producer, and great filmmaker, Said Fadaya, who shot the film. So it deals with, she is in love with someone, and he left to Somalia, and she's not sure if he's back or not. So the cafe scene was a little confusion, I think. So that was Daydream, and the rest is, because it starts with the henna scene and ends with the henna scene. So one is flashback and one is Daydream. So it's a simple story, and I hope you guys liked it. And Zach will continue to.
First off, I want to say thank you so much for Somali Week for having us, and for Ali Naji for casting me in his short film. This was the first time I was working with Ali Naji and with a large Somali community. All of the members of staff and the people who were participating in the cast, crew, and catering were all Somali. So I think that was one thing that was very, very important for me. Yeah, I think that was very, very something important for me to experience early in my career, to be humbled by this talent, and it was a great opportunity. Playing the role of Nasir was very great. I got to experience, communicating and living that lifestyle of what generally young Somali men and girls who are getting married kind of live in. I was married before, so I could understand and have a sense of hindsight. So with the gentleman and Samira and Nasir's love triangle, love situation, I was a bit confused, if I can be honest, with Ali Naji. Now you guys have seen the film yourselves. I don't think Nasir just went to Somalia and had an accident. That just doesn't happen. Should I say? I'm sorry, I wanted to ask him and stuff. I know it's in the script that that's what happened, but because we were left with so much unknownness in the script, I was able to, kind of think that there's another narrative with Nasir and that he just didn't leave this girl and had an accident, You know what I'm saying? So I want you to let me know, is there something that happened with Nasir, or is there something that's gonna happen, or Samira?
To be continue, we don't know. Next film.
Part 2 to come. Part 2. Can I ask the two of you actually, as actors as well here on the platform, in terms of the challenges that you face as young Somali actors? Is there a space for you? We've talked on this conference, on the festival, for a long time about space and creating space for yourself. Have you found your supporters and your mentors? Is there space for you? Do you have to carve out your own niche, a unique space, or how is that for you?
First, I just want to say hello, everybody. Well, for me, it was a little bit of a challenge. When I first started my acting career, there was there was no Somali people on screen when I was growing up, apart from being pirates or, a clip here and there. And even if there were Somali people on screen, they weren't played by Somali people, they were played by other West Africans, or I don't know if you guys experienced the same, but that's what I experienced. So when I first got into acting, that was my main thing. There has to be a way for Somali people to be shown on screen positively, and have their stories to be seen and heard. That's how I got into acting. So it was hard. I definitely had to carve my own path. I had to fight for roles. I had to make roles happen. The only roles that were available for me was angry black woman or drug dealer's wife, or typical stereotypical black roles, not even East African, but black roles. And so that was difficult, definitely. And then I went on to films. I took a little bit of break. And then I did a little short movie with Nabil Noor when I was really, really young. I think I was 16, 15. It's called Dik Amadoko. It's quite shocking, quite horrendous movie. So if you guys watch it, please don't judge me. So I did that movie. That kind of gave me a bit of hope when it comes to being an actress, because I realized that yes, I might not have roles available for me in the British industry, but there are Somali people out here making movies for Somali people. So that really helped me to carry on doing what I'm doing. Once that was done and I got into film school and whatever, a lot of diversity became a huge thing in the industry, in British industry especially. So I managed to carve myself a little path there as well. Right now I'm a student at one of the biggest film academies in London, the NYFA.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So my goal is hopefully to open doors for more Somali people to become actors, become directors, whatever it is, and to have positive roles for us available. But it's still a struggle. And it probably will be for quite a few years, but we're getting there. We're definitely getting. And now watching these little short movies and watching Ali Naji do his magic and Zach Sell. This guy, let me just tell you, this guy was the main reason I got into acting, because I used to watch Geek Nation. I don't know if you guys remember that. It was my favorite thing to do. Like in high school, I would go to the bathroom and just be like, what's this guy doing? So that kind of gave me a platform, knowing, yeah, there's more people out here doing stuff, you know? So yeah, it is hard. It really is. But as long as we're out here fighting for it, and not giving up, and like Adair said over here, Somali people are the most creative people that I know personally. We are creative when it comes to poets, filming, anything like that. So, you know, it is, if that makes sense, you know? It is in our blood.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
we will definitely continue, and hopefully in the next 5 years, we'll have more Somali people on the screen, hopefully in the Oscars, hopefully in the BAFTAs.
Zach, do you want to add to that? Anything you want to add?
Well, okay, so I went to film school called Ravensbourne, which is a film institute, and I was fortunate enough to do a degree called Fast Track Digital Film Production and complete my degree in 2 years. And then straight after, I started working in post-production and editing, and then I started auditioning. Nothing worked out for me. I got rejected a lot. I'm still getting rejected, but accepted in places that I belong in and existing in spaces I shine in. I was fortunate, still am fortunate enough to work with great people who believe in me, artists and creatives all around the world, especially photographers like Sami Swar, who's an amazing editorial photographer who has supported and encouraged me and brought so much magic into my life in terms of art and also forward-thinking cinematography. And yeah, I feel like one advice that I can give you is, in the creative world, find your tribe and kill it. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll move on now to Zakaria. Zakaria is coming, obviously, because the film of his late father. And it was an incredibly moving film. And he showed the perspective of exactly what people went through. Perhaps we only imagined it if you hadn't been there. But it showed through the eyes of a child, through the eyes of his grandfather, what actually happened when people were fleeing, and the awful nature of civil war, when it's your brother killing you, when it's the people closest to you who are killing you. Do you want to talk a bit about that film that your late father, Allahuna Harith, was in, Zakaria?
Thank you very much, firstly, for Somali Week Festival for allowing this film to be presented here. Before I start, firstly, if I could request all of you, and if you guys could make dua for him. So I was born here, luckily, Queen Charlotte Hospital in Hammersmith. I didn't go through any of that, but I think if we go back to when the film was made obviously while Abba was still alive. And I remember him telling me while I was doing my show, because I was doing my show while I was still alive, I remember him telling me he's shooting a film and this is how it's going. And funnily enough, the acting in the film, when you look back at it and when I was watching it right now, it's not even acting. Like, when you think about it, that was genuinely the person Abba was. So I think the film, what it touched on main subjects, obviously tribalism being one of them, and obviously Abba and Hoya and the generation before us obviously suffered as account of that in the Civil War. But I think what it touched on was also, for example, he touched on a subject where it said, basically meaning whoever puts their trust in Ilahi, obviously you've got tawakkul in Allah, you've got trust in Allah, don't worry about it, leave the rest to Ilahi. But he added another extra part in it, which I loved. For me, that was the best part. And I always say it to Hoya, because whenever Hoya didn't I'm like, Hoya GP can add no, my ilaha tala sarte. Like, he didn't say jump off somewhere. He also said, عقلي قاعد استعمال, basically meaning use your head as well, so don't. And it touched on the film after that, I think it was the Dab one, where people said fate is fate and I'll leave it to Ilahi, but obviously he included leave it to Ilahi but also use your head. And if we talk about timing and qabil, and also another thing he touched on was wallahi, which he always used to tell us when we were younger. I'll be real with you, illa abadanta, I did not know much about qabil. It's until after people came up to me and they said, ina aderka ana hay hagasan kaga sogala and dina asan ka imada so sasan school dagna, but other I've never seen you before. So it touched on that, and it's true. Why limit yourself to thousands of people when you've got millions of Somalis across the world? And especially if we see it here, wallahi, your clock, when I'm in an Uber, especially the close time to when I was, that if I was in an Uber or a cab, someone would be like to me, and I'll be like, ha. And then he'll be like, or before he clocks him in America, those who don't know it, they'll be like, really guy, what come at I said, what come at that's already, he's already trying to sniff out where you're from. If I'm north, Hadan Hargeis he already knows. Hadan Moqdisha he already knows. So me, I play it soft. I say, Melo one somewhere, Hargeis on somewhere, Hamar on somewhere, Mel and somewhere. Then he's confused. He's thinking, what is there? So I think it was that way. That's exactly what he touched on, not limiting yourself. And I think the key thing was also the lineage between the grandson, who's Hussein, and the Owa, who's Abba. And if you look at it, it's like the dad, I don't know if you guys noticed it in the film, the dad left off to go fight in the clan. And he told him, Jug, and he said, no, one either. Then it was left to the Owa, and it's so similar to the stories you hear back home, where they say, Oge, hagani kana, ama aderke kana, ama edide kana. And it's like, those are the sacrifices your parents made. So what are you going to do now to fulfill those ambitions that they had for you, if you get what I mean? And it's so important that when I look back at it, and Abu was telling me about the film and how it was going to be released, initially when he was coming back, it was the week that he was coming back that we were meant to film a show together, but his time came, obviously, so that's when the time came. And it's like, you never know exactly when any of you are going to die. And you never know when anything's going to happen. And it's true, we've got the creativity in our blood. So why not use it to our why not use it to our capability? And let's be as creative while we're here as we can. So we set an example. Because me, I don't know about you guys, but personally, I'll be showing my grandsons, and the grandsons will be showing grandsons that film, inshallah, and may it continue.
Just to wrap up, thank you to all the panelists for your amazing discussions. It was really, really enjoyable. I hope you can continue these discussions with the crowd later. But thank you for coming today, and thanks for making this such a rich discussion. Thank you.